Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach self-government, which is actually a type of parenting. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 rules that every family should have. I'm going to share with you 5 of our most important rules in our family, but they might surprise you. So these rules are actually principles. At the very least, they're based on principles. So did you know that there is a difference between rules and principles? We're going to talk about rules and principles briefly, and then I'm going to be sharing with you these 5 rules that you will want to use in your life forever. We need rules in order to make sure that we have a good structure in our home, right? So the thing is there's rules that are made just because somebody wants to change the flow of something, or because somebody desires something or feels something. And then there's rules that are based upon principles. So a principle is something that is eternal. In fact, it's also something that's very, very broad. So it can be applied to anything, any situation. Rules don't necessarily apply to every single situation. Taking over your dish, it applies to after a meal only, right? Because it could be that there's a dish that someone gets out for something. If you start taking it over to the sink and it's a clean dish, or someone hasn't used it yet, or they're using it to prepare a dinner, then that rule definitely is going to get in the way. It doesn't apply. So usually a rule is attached to a timestamp, which is one of the reasons that you know it's not a principle, but it's a rule. Rules are things that can change at any given time. So think laws. Laws change all the time. One person doesn't like the way something is going, and so maybe they have a personal story about it, that something bothered them, so they change the law. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that that law was based upon a principle. If a rule has a principle base, though, it should be able to be applied to anything. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 rules that really are principles. In fact, all of their steps are principles, so they can be applied to almost any situation. In fact, I tell people these particular skills, I usually call them skills, take care of 99% of all behavioral problems. So let's talk about some of these skills and how we can use them in our lives at home. In my Teaching Self-Government Parenting course, I teach 4 basic skills. And now you're thinking, but wait, Nicholeen, I thought there was 5. There are 5, but only 4 of them are part of the 4 basic skills. So these 4 basic skills take care of 99% of a person's behavioral problems. And they are very empowering. Also, they are principles. They apply to any situation. So skill number 1 is following instructions. A person needs to know how to follow instructions. Now think what this could help with. Oh, it's somebody's dish night. They need to do the dishes. Well, technically that's an instruction then, isn't it? Or maybe a person is told that they need to help clean up a certain area. Well, that's an instruction. A person is supposed to wake up on time because the family has decided we wake up at this certain time of day. Well, that's an instruction. So there's so many things that apply to following an instruction. Maybe just the way we even treat our family. When we talk about what type of a family we want to have, then and a person does not behave in that way, then they are not following instructions and becoming that type of family that we created in what we call in our family the family vision for our Peck family. So what are the steps to following instructions? You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body. You say, okay, or you ask to disagree appropriately, and then you do the task immediately and then drop the subject. Now, ideally, a person learns to give themselves instructions and to follow through with their own instructions. This is the epitome of what it means to be self-governing. When we say look at the person, I like to think of that as look at the person or the situation. Because when you're giving yourself an instruction, you're probably looking at a situation like, what time do I have to wake up in the morning? And then you're keeping a calm face, voice, and body about the fact that you know you've got to wake up really early. And then you say, okay, I'm going to do it. You make a plan for it. When the alarm goes off, you actually get up, and then you check back with yourself by saying, I woke up on time. Maybe you write it in your journal. Maybe you just do a little who hoorah for yourself, but you check back saying what you did. And if you didn't wake up on time, then if you're a self-governed person, you get to do a self-correction as well. Before we get to these next skills and rules that you're going to want to have, click that subscribe button. There are so many things on this channel related to self-government, skills, calm parenting, and good united relationships that you are not going to want to miss. And while you're at it, click that bell too, because then you'll get notifications for when I have a new video that's come out. The second of the 4 basic skills is our second rule that you're going to want to learn. In fact, I know so many adults who do not know this skill. This skill is accepting no answers and criticism. Think of that person who cannot accept disappointment. They wanted something, they wanted a job promotion, they didn't get it. So they become very disgruntled and negative at work. That person cannot accept a no answer. Or maybe a person votes for a particular political candidate and their candidate doesn't win. And so they have a bad attitude about it, maybe even riot in the streets or have some sort of a negative outlook on life and their country, all because one person got into office that they didn't want. That is a person who is not accepting a no answer. In fact, with the last few elections, I've looked at what's gone on and thought people are really struggling with accepting no answers right now in elections that are happening around the world. How does a person accept a no answer? And by the way, any boundary line that you shouldn't cross, that's actually a no answer. So this is a very broad skill that will help you with any type of no answers that might confront your child, such as, no, we don't say that word. Or maybe, no, you can't play at a friend's house right now. Or no, you don't get to go to the party. But maybe it's also taking something that doesn't belong to you. Well, that's a boundary line. So that's a no answer too, right? So what are the steps? There are 4 steps. You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, and then you drop the subject. That means you don't think about it or talk about it anymore. You just let it go and you make the best out of the situation that didn't turn out perfectly how you wanted it to be. That's what it means to be resilient and anti-fragile in our lives. And we do definitely need people who are anti-fragile. We have a fragility problem in our society today, and I think it's because not enough people have the skill of accepting no answers and criticism. Rule number 3, which is also a skill, is accepting consequences. A person will never learn self-government or self-mastery unless they are given the opportunity to accept consequences for their own actions. Because in order to learn self-government, a person has to learn cause and effect. So that means we need to teach a person the steps to accepting a consequence. There are 6 skills to accepting a consequence. You look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, then you do whatever negative consequence it is, and you check back and drop the subject, which means that you accept I did something that had a negative consequence and I'll follow through and not take it personally, which means I'm going to let it go and I'm just going to learn from it afterward. This is a very mature skill, but it can be taught. In fact, even the youngest of children can do this. Well, maybe not the youngest, but starting at about age 2. So my children could do all 4 of the 4 basic skills that we've been talking about when they were in their toddler years. So what is that 4th of the 4 basic skills? Well, it is disagreeing appropriately. You might be thinking, how in the world could a 2-year-old disagree appropriately? Well, they do, and it's so cute. It sounds like, may I disagree appropriately, Mom? And then you say, yes, and they say, I know you don't want me to have a cookie, but I want one. That's a good disagree appropriately. The child is calm and they ask to disagree appropriately. They say that they understand the other person's point of view. They share their point of view, and then they listen to what Mom has to say. And if I say, you can have a cookie, then they say, okay, and they're happy about it. But if I say, well, I'm still giving a no answer about the cookie, then they say, okay, and they drop the subject. That's what a person does who disagrees appropriately. This is a skill that will help them with bosses and coworkers, in politics and government, when they're trying to be heard in any of the different areas of life where they feel like they need to have a voice. It's called diplomacy, and we can teach diplomacy and true understanding in our homes by having a rule that when we have something to say, like a person needs to voice their opinion or disagree with another person, we can do it in a disagree appropriately way. That's right, the children don't use disagree appropriately just with mom and dad, but they also use disagree appropriately with each other, with teachers, with neighbors, with grandparents, with anyone, because these are skills for life. So what's rule number 5? Because it's not one of the 4 basic skills. Rule number 5 is we don't ever talk about it until we're calm. In our family, we don't discuss problems and try to problem solve them until everyone is ready. This is just the kind thing to do. When you understand how the brain works when a person is out of control, it just makes sense. If a person is going out of control, they're going to midbrain or back brain. This means that they have minimal ability to function in the prefrontal cortex. So we want them to get to a place of calmness, then we'll discuss the problem. So there are certain skills that I use, it's called intensive teaching, to help a person get to a place of calmness. There's something called the rule of 3 I use, especially if the child is ages maybe 6 or 7 and older. And then we have a calm down spot with a corrective teaching that we use when a child is younger and they need to be pointed toward calmness as well. But this rule about calmness is important because there's a lot of people that will dive into a power struggle with a whining child or child that's having an attitude problem in an attempt to be understanding or to help the child get understood. But honestly, it doesn't happen until the child has fully calmed and their chemical levels in their brain are where they need to be so that they can use the frontal lobe. My children know that I will say instead, it seems to me that you want to tell me something about going to this party or whatever it is. And I want to know what that is. We need to talk about it. But first we need to choose to be calm. Then we can talk about it. So I'm not putting them off or trying to tell them they don't get to have the problem they're having right now, but they're not going to find the understanding that they're searching for by having the attitude problem or the anger until they get calm. And then we calmly discuss the situation. And maybe they even do a disagree appropriately at that point. Those are just 5 of the rules that we live by in the Peck family. But there are more. They are rules that are based upon principles. And they can be applied to any situation. Those principles are life-changing, lead to freedom, and increased unity and bonding as a family. If you would like to learn more about those rules, be sure to go to teachingselfgovernment.com and find the books that teach the 4 basic skills. Look for the Teaching Self-Government Parenting course and some of the 3-day trainings that I do so that you can learn all the skills that you need in order to live by principle in your home, which is the opposite of living by manipulation. Click on the link to teachingselfgovernment.com in the description below now.